Today's a special day. It's the second consecutive year that I've run the Houston Half Marathon in full costume as Clutch for organ donation awareness. My father's life was saved by an organ donor on February 15th, 2012, when he received a double lung transplant that saved his life. He was suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a non-lifestyle related lung disease, a hardening of the lungs, and it was compounded by a case of pneumonia, and I had rushed him to the hospital on February 2nd, 2012. The doctors basically said, we can clear this pneumonia up, but he has about 3 months to live if he doesn't get a transplant. And a week later, he was on the transplant list, and a week later after that, he got the transplant that saved his life, and it was surreal and crazy, emotional, and one of the toughest times in my life, but one of the greatest, most triumphant moments of my life. A year later, we got to meet the Heidemann family, the parents of Ian Heidemann, who was the boy, 22-year-old young man who tragically died in a car accident on Valentine's Day 2012. And it's a surreal thing to watch a man listen with a stethoscope to your father's lungs that are really his son's lungs, inhale and exhale in your father's chest. We're forever grateful to Ian. We're forever grateful to the Heidemann family. I'm in awe of the way they handle things with such grace. They've taken on the cause of organ donation to pay tribute to their son and to try to tell his story and pay it forward. I remember when I first met Rob just sobbing into his shoulder and him consoling me because it was my first confrontation with the grief of the loss of his son, and he had had a year to start digesting it, and he just looked at me and said, it's all right. We feel like this gives us even more closure in that our son gets to live on. On the eve of the marathon, the Rockets were very kind and generous, and a couple days out offered me a suite. These suites are nice. And they hold 19 people, and they said, we're going to trip it out with food and everything, and we want you to figure out how to make some good with it, with Life Gift and all the work that you're doing there. And it's the eve of the marathon. Rob and Janice Heidemann, Ian's parents, the organ donor that saved my dad's life, were coming into town to support me in the marathon as they do every year. But as a surprise to them, when the Rockets gave me this suite, I kind of worked my butt off over 2 days, and I orchestrated all the local organ recipients' lives were saved from Ian's gifts were at the game and in the suite when Rob and Janice arrived. And it's the first time that they'd seen him since the first time they'd met him a year and a half ago. And it was a great reunion. They were all there at timeout number 2. At the suggestion of my buddy Terrence at the Rockets, I went up in costume. I hugged everybody and I said, guys, I got a surprise for all of you. I need you to come stand down here. I was in costume and I said, I need you to all come down here for a second. I got a surprise. And they said, okay, Robert. And I lined them all up. My good friend John Paul Stevenson, our PA announcer, started reading a script that I had written just hours beforehand while crying over my keyboard. There was a tight shot of Rob and Janice on the video board. John Paul said, Rockets fans, please welcome Rob and Janice Heidemann to Toyota Center. 3 years ago, Rob and Janice tragically lost their son Ian at the age of 22 in a car accident on Valentine's Day 2012. Ian was an organ donor, and due to his forward-thinking, selfless gifts, he saved 5 lives, and the whole Toyota Center erupted in applause. It was a magical moment. And when the applause died down, John Paul continued with the words that I had written as the camera started to slowly pan out. And he said, Rob and Janice are joined tonight by Ian's heart recipient, Reggie King, Ian's pancreas and kidney recipient, Rachel Brownhill, and Ian's double lung recipient, Paul Boudwin, who is Clutch's dad. And there I am next to my dad in costume, hugging him, and the whole place gave us a standing ovation. It was a good moment. And then I went up and hugged Rob after the cameras turned off, and Rob starts crying into my shoulder, and I'm crying into his through the costume. And he just said, thank you, Robert. And I said, no, thank you, Rob. We're going to celebrate your son tonight, and we're going to remember him and celebrate him, and let's have some fun. And he said, you got it. Go Rockets. So that's what today's about. Today's about creating the biggest spectacle in a fun, silly, goofy way with a 6'8", 92-inch waist teddy bear that's going to run 13.1 miles, and he's going to stand out in the crowd, and people are going to turn their heads and go, what? This is ridiculous. This is amazing. This is silly. And then when they do turn their heads, they're going to see the band across my forehead that has donatelifetexas.org on it, and they're going to see the message on my t-shirt, the 6XL that it is, along with the rest of my team that's running with me, that says Team Clutch. I run for organ donation awareness. donatelifetexas.org. Become an organ donor today, and also lifegift.org. Today is one piece of my quest to try to convince as many people in our country to say yes to organ donation as possible. There's 120,000 people on the transplant waiting list. 18 people die every single day in our country that otherwise would have been saved if there was enough available organs and people registered to be organ donors. It's something that everybody can participate in. It's something that everybody might benefit at one point in their life. And it only takes about 60 seconds to go online and sign up. Most of people, it's just an awareness issue, and it's about taking the time to do it. Every major world religion supports organ donation, and we're going to make a difference. I'll be honest with you, I was a little scared when the race started, and I was nervous. It's one thing to set forth with a plan, but, you know, it was tough. I only had 4 hours sleep. I was tired. When that race started, I was at the point, I was so exhausted. I had my wife's help the whole time. I was nervous. I had 13.1 miles ahead of me in this costume that makes it a little bit harder to breathe, a lot harder actually. You know, weighs 20 pounds when the race starts, weighs 30 pounds when the race is over because it's soaked with sweat. There wasn't but 10 seconds that went by that I didn't hear some Houstonian calling out, "Go Clutch, you can do it. Saw your dad at the game last night. I'm an organ donor. Go Clutch, you got it. Come on, Robert." That helped fuel me, to be honest with you. There's something magical about a big race where there's 250,000 spectators live that are all there, you know, with just such positive energy flowing and encouraging you along the way. So in one way you're alone in that you're having to do the hard work and, you know, stave off the pain, but in another way you're surrounded by people and you feel uplifted and supported by them. And some of them are, you know, most of them are complete strangers, but you all kind of feel like you're in it together. But at mile 7, I started to get shaky, and I knew I'm not going to be able to run this entire thing solid. I'm going to have to stop at some point. You know, and then we took a pit stop right after mile 9 to change costumes so that I didn't have this waterlogged, sweat-logged one on. And that was tough because anytime you stop, any long-distance runner will tell you, even if they're not running a teddy bear costume, that if you stop, you start to seize up. You cramp up, you know, your calves on me will start to cramp up and it feels like you got softballs in your calves. So I was trying to make that pit stop as quick as possible, down 2 bottles of Gatorade as I'm changing the body part of the costume, but I had to keep the t-shirt on because that's what had the message about organ donation on it. And then the new body, we forgot, had a little centerpiece between the legs that gives the belly a little bit of the shape, but when running, chafes really bad. One time I ran 10 miles in the costume without that piece, with that piece in, and it chafed me to the point of cutting my legs and bleeding. So, you know, one of my guys had a knife and I'm cutting out the middle part of it just in a hurry and sliced that out, got the costume back on and got back out there on the path. It was like a crazy pit stop in NASCAR or something. I started to break down around mile 10. I remember distinctly thinking, man, in the next 5 minutes, I might break down emotionally and start sobbing. I might throw up, or I might pass out. I was also fueled by, I gotta do this. I truly believe, saving lives. It's inspiring people to sign up to be donors. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that one day down the line, some of those people that sign up because of this will tragically die before their time. And either that can just be a tragedy and those people, and their organs can go to waste, or they can create miracles and save lives. So that fueled me. We finished it. We got in. We didn't set any world records. My quickest time in a half marathon out of costume is 1:38. That day, I think we finished at 2:51. A year before, we did it in 2:29. So this was a tougher year. I wasn't in as good a shape, and then the 4 hours sleep didn't help matters this year. The best part of the race was finishing. When it was over. The pain was done. But the pride lives forever, as they say. I heard a good quote that was, please don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here.